I am 32, male, never signed up to be a parent. Yet, for most of my teenage years and early 20s, that's exactly what I was forced to be, except the kids weren't even mine. They were my sisters. And now, after years of being used, disrespected, and discarded, my family is crawling back, begging for help. And I have zero plans to lift a damn finger. But let me start from the beginning. Growing up, my parents had a golden child, and it sure as hell wasn't me. My sister, 6 years older than me, could do no wrong in their eyes. When she got pregnant at 19 by some deadbeat loser, my parents bent over backward to support her, which really meant forcing the responsibility onto me. I was 13 when my first nephew was born, and that's when my life stopped being mine. Babysitting? Non-negotiable. Helping with feedings? My job. Changing diapers? If I refused, I was selfish. By the time I was 16, my weekends, afternoons, and summers were spent raising my sister's growing brood. She had her second kid at 21, then a third at 24. And every single time, my parents acted like it was my responsibility to step up. I missed parties. I lost friends. I turned down sports and clubs because family comes first. Meanwhile, my sister still went out, dated, partied, and lived her life like she was child-free. My parents? They made excuse after excuse for her. She's a single mom. She needs help. We're too old for this. You're young. You can handle it. You'll understand when you have kids. I swallowed it for years. Kept my head down. Did what I was told. But resentment festered. The final straw came when I was 18. I had gotten a partial scholarship to a university out of state. It was my ticket to freedom, but my parents shot it down before I could even celebrate. You can't go, my mother had said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Your sister needs you. Like hell she did. She needed a damn wake-up call. I fought. Hard. My father called me ungrateful. My sister cried, saying she didn't know what she'd do without me. But I was done. I took out student loans, packed my bags, and left. And the best part? I never looked back. At first, they tried guilt-tripping me. Calls. Messages. My mother would sob about how I abandoned my real responsibilities. My sister would send passive-aggressive texts about how exhausted she was. When that didn't work, they tried demanding money. Family helps family, my father said once, as if they had ever helped me. I blocked them, focused on myself, worked my ass off, graduated, got a great job in tech, and for the first time in my life, I was free. For almost a decade, I had peace. I built my life, made real friendships, traveled, and, most importantly, never let my family drain me again. Then last year, out of the blue, my sister reached out. Not with an apology. Not to make amends. No, she wanted money. Turns out, 3 kids are expensive. Who knew? And without me playing free babysitter, things spiraled. She was drowning in debt. My parents were struggling too since they had spent their retirement bailing her out. And now, suddenly, I wasn't the black sheep. I was successful and part of the family again. I told her no. She lost it. Called me heartless, selfish, a traitor. My parents jumped in, demanding I reconsider because blood is blood. When I still refused, they really showed their true colors. First, they tried public shaming. Long Facebook posts about ungrateful children and how some people forget where they came from. Then, my sister started a GoFundMe, specifically naming me as the reason she was struggling, because I refused to help family in need. But the final straw? They lied to my employer. Somehow, they found out where I worked and emailed HR, claiming I was a criminal who had abandoned my children. They tried to get me fired. Luckily, my company saw through the nonsense, but I was done. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I called a lawyer. It took months, but I gathered every message, every demand, every slanderous post, and I sued them for defamation. My sister, thinking she could win, doubled down in court, only to get obliterated when I provided receipts. The judge ruled in my favor. My sister was ordered to take down her posts and pay damages, which, hilariously, put her in even more debt. My parents? They tried to reason with me afterward. It didn't have to go this far. You're really going to do this to family? I just laughed, hung up, and haven't spoken to them since. They made their bed. Now they can rot in it. After the lawsuit wrapped up, I thought that would be the end of it. My parents and sister had humiliated themselves in court, their lies exposed, and their financial situation was worse than ever. I figured they'd slink away in shame, finally realizing that I was done playing their scapegoat. I should have known better. Entitled people don't learn. They don't reflect. They scheme. A few months after the legal dust settled, I started hearing whispers from extended family. My aunt reached out, hesitant but concerned. "Your parents are telling everyone you've forced your sister into debt," she said over the phone. I almost laughed. "You mean the same debt she racked up before I sued her?" My aunt sighed. "They're twisting it, making it sound like you took everything from her." I hung up, shaking my head. This was their new game, turning me into the villain in other people's eyes, hoping anyone, would pressure me into making things right. It didn't work. Most of my extended family knew the truth. The rest? I didn't care. But then they escalated. I came home one evening to find an envelope stuffed in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled in shaky handwriting. Inside, a letter from my parents, a plea for help. They painted a tragic picture. How my father was sick, how my mother was barely holding things together, how my sister was trying her best. They begged me to just talk to them, to understand their side. I tossed it in the trash. Then, 2 weeks later, another letter. This time with hospital records. My father had actually been hospitalized recently, stress-related complications. My mother wrote about how it was all my fault. "Do you even care if your own father dies?" That was the line that did it for me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just numb. They were relentless. And I knew then they weren't going to stop. So I made my final move. I met with my lawyer again, this time for a cease and desist order. It was simple. They were to stop contacting me. No letters. No calls. No social media nonsense. And if they violated it, legal consequences. I had it formally delivered to their house, signature required. Not even 2 hours later, my sister texted me. "Are you serious? You're taking this too far?" I ignored her. Then my mother called. Voicemail. "You're breaking this family apart. Delete." Then my father. Voicemail. "You think money makes you better than us? You think your fancy lawyer can erase your responsibilities?" Delete. And finally, the real kicker. My sister's ex, the deadbeat father of her kids, reached out. The man who had been missing for years suddenly had an opinion. "Man, you're really screwing over your nephews," his message read. Not cool. That one made me laugh. A guy who ditched his own kids was trying to lecture me about responsibility? The audacity was insane. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my lawyer. The official warning went out the next day. And when they still tried to contact me after that, I filed for a restraining order. That finally shut them up. It was over. They had pushed and pushed, thinking they could guilt, manipulate, or outright bully me back into submission. But I wasn't that 16-year-old kid trapped under their thumb anymore. I was free, and they had nothing left to hold over me. A few months passed, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. No drama. No toxic family weighing me down. And then one final twist. I got a call from a cousin, one of the few I still spoke to. She hesitated before dropping the bombshell. My sister? She was pregnant again. I nearly dropped my phone. She what? She's having another kid. No one knows who the father is. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. My parents had spent years enabling her. They had drained their finances. They had sabotaged their relationship with their only son. And after all of that, my sister was still repeating the same damn cycle. I felt nothing. No anger. No sympathy. Just cold indifference. She had made her choices. Now she could live with them. And as for me, I was finally completely done. Oh, and if you think this is the worst of it, you're wrong. There's a whole other story about how they tried using a fake will to scam me. But that's a tale for another day. So subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.